Good morning, students. Today we are going to study your fifth poem, "The Trees," composed by Adrian Rich. It is from the first flight. Before moving on, we have to discuss about the theme. The theme of the poem is conflict between man and nature. It has secondary meaning too. The trees here are metaphorically used for women too. Let's move on. Can there be a forest without trees? The poet is putting us question. Can there be a forest without trees? Where are the trees in this poem and where do they go? The question is, can there be forest without trees? In fact, the answer is no. Where are the trees in this poem and where do they go? Now there are two questions which we have to discuss in the poem. Where are the trees and where do they go? The first line. The trees inside are moving out into the forest. The forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun buried its feet in shadow. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. This is the first stanza. Let's discuss one by one. The trees inside are moving out into the forest. What does this line say? The line says the trees that are inside the house of the poetess are going to the forest. Why? Why they are going to the forest? Because they are kept in the house. Their natural habitat is forest. As we live in the society, in the same way, trees live in the forest. That's why they are going to the forest. They want to release themselves from the house of the poetess. The second line, the forest that was empty all these days. The poet is saying the forest was empty for so many days. Why it was empty? Because human beings have planted the trees inside the house and cut the trees in the forest. Where no birds could sit, no insect hide, no sun buried its feet in shadow. The poet is saying, as there were no trees in the forest, the birds were unable to sit on the branches. Why birds were unable to sit in the branches? Because there were no trees in the forest for so many days. No insect hide. She is saying insects were unable to hide themselves in the branches in the trunk of the trees. Why? Because there were no trees, as earlier she has mentioned. No sun buried its feet in shadow. Even the sun cannot disappear their sunlight in the shadow of the trees. Why? The same answer. Because there were no trees in the forest. The forest that was empty all these days will be full of trees by morning. The poet hopes that by morning the forest will be full of trees. Why? Because the trees are moving to the forest. That's why she is saying the forest that was empty all this night will be full of trees by morning. Let's have a look at the stanza for 1 second or 2 seconds. Okay, let's discuss the poetic devices about the stanza. There is personification. In the first line, there is personification. Why there is personification? Because trees are shown moving. How can trees move? You know what is a personification? Personification is when inanimate things and non-living things are given human qualities. So trees are shown here moving. So there is personification. The second one, in two lines, there is anaphora. When it is anaphora, when two lines, the beginning of the two lines, a word or phrase is the same. There is no and no. So that's why there is anaphora. When it is anaphora, when a word or phrase in the consecutive two lines is the same. And that is, there is sun bury its feet. There is personification again. Again, when there is personification, when non-living things and inanimate ideas are giving human qualities. The sun buried its feet. The sun is showing having the feet. How can sun have the feet? That's why there is personification. There is enjambment too. When there is enjambment, when one line continues to the second line without any punctuation mark. Look at the line. The forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun buried its feet. Look, this is continuous, and there is a punctuation mark. So there is enjambment. Look at the devices. Okay, let's move on to the question related to the stanza. The first question: The first question is, why are the trees going to the forest? The second one, why is the forest empty? The third one, you have to explain this line. No sun buried its feet in the shadow. The fourth one, what cannot happen in the treeless forest? The fifth one, I read the questions again. Why are the trees going to the forest? Why is the forest empty? No sun buried its feet in shadow. You have to explain this line. What cannot happen in the treeless forest? And find out the poetic devices in the stanza. Okay, you have to write these answers in your notebook. If there is any questions, you can discuss in the class. Till then, see you in the next session. Goodbye.